Right now, one of the most tightly guarded military operations in recent American history is still being pieced together by analysts, governments, and intelligence services around the world. B-2 stealth bombers, the most advanced strategic aircraft the United States has ever built, reportedly flew halfway across the planet, penetrated Iranian airspace, and dropped some of the most destructive conventional bombs ever deployed in combat. If the confirmed reporting holds, what happened over Iran may represent the single largest combat use of B-2 bombers in the history of the United States Air Force. And the implications of that, for Iran, for the region, for every American watching oil prices and monitoring military deployments, are still unfolding in real time. Here is what we know, what is still being verified, and what it means for the next 72 hours. According to reporting from ABC News, The Wall Street Journal, and statements attributed to the United States Central Command, the military command responsible for all American operations across the Middle East, B-2 A-Spirit stealth bombers from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri conducted a coordinated strike against hardened underground targets inside Iran. The operation has been identified in defense reporting as Operation Epic Fury. The targets, hardened underground ballistic missile storage facilities, described as missile cities, operated by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Iran's most elite and politically powerful military branch. Specific reporting names the Tabriz North Missile Base as one of the confirmed sites. According to Pentagon-attributed statements, the bombers dropped dozens of 2,000-pound penetrator bombs, weapons designed specifically to punch through reinforced concrete and hardened underground structures before detonating inside. Commercial satellite imagery, cited by multiple defense outlets, reportedly shows collapsed tunnel entrances and scorched access roads at the target locations. Secondary explosions were observed, suggesting the bombs reached missile storage chambers and fuel depots inside those tunnel networks before the fires stopped. The Aviationist, a well-regarded defense aviation publication, reported approximately 4 B-2s were involved in the operation directly. The flight itself, depending on routing, ran an estimated 18 hours, with multiple mid-air refuelings. Some references cite a mission duration closer to 37 hours for the non-stop round trip, which, if accurate, would make it one of the longest combat sorties ever recorded. And that was just the most recently reported operation. But what happened before this makes the situation significantly more complicated. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, in a statement attributed to ABC News and referenced across multiple defense publications, stated after a separate June 2025 operation named Operation Midnight Hammer that their ambitions have been obliterated. General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, confirmed that Operation Midnight Hammer was the largest strike using B-2 bombers in American military history. In that earlier operation, 14G Bu-57 massive ordnance penetrator bombs, each weighing 30,000 pounds, measuring roughly 20 feet in length, and capable of penetrating approximately 200 feet of reinforced earth before detonating, were used against Iran's nuclear facilities at Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. That was reported as the first operational use of the GBU-57 in combat. The operation involved over 125 aircraft in total, including aerial refueling tankers, fighter escort aircraft, electronic warfare platforms, and drone reconnaissance assets, providing real-time intelligence during the strike. So, within roughly 9 months, the United States appears to have conducted 2 separate B-2 strike packages against Iran, one targeting nuclear infrastructure, one targeting ballistic missile storage. The scale of each operation individually would have been historically significant. Together, they represent a strategic campaign of a kind the United States has not executed since the opening phase of the Iraq War in 2003. It is important to be precise about what is confirmed and what is contested here. A separate set of sources, including references to a Pentagon briefing on March 15th, 2026, produced a statement that the Defense Department had conducted no operations in Iran. Major wire services, including Reuters, the Associated Press, and the BBC, reportedly found no confirmed incidents at the time of that briefing. An International Atomic Energy Agency report dated around mid-March 2026 from the UN's nuclear watchdog, which maintains the most direct access to Iran's declared nuclear sites, reportedly indicated that facilities at Fordow and Natanz appeared intact, though the specific contents of that report have not been independently confirmed from available sources. That contradiction has not been publicly resolved. These are not minor discrepancies. They are diametrically opposing claims about whether a military operation, one that would rank among the most consequential in the last 2 decades, actually took place, and what it destroyed. Independent verification from primary official sources at the Pentagon CENTCOM and the IAEA is essential before treating either version as definitive. What makes the overall situation credible enough to report, even amid that uncertainty, is the nature of the sources supporting the strike narrative. U.S. Central Command reportedly released operational footage directly to its official account. The Wall Street Journal and ABC News, organizations with established Pentagon sourcing, attributed specific statements to named officials, including a 4-star general. The War Zone, run by veteran defense journalist Tyler Rogaway, and considered among the most reliable open-source military publications operating today, reported on B-2 operations against Iranian underground missile facilities. That combination of sourcing does not prove the strikes occurred, but it places this in a different category from unverified social media clips or anonymous accounts. The question of why now, why these targets, why this timing, runs directly through the nature of what Iran has been building underground for the last decade. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force has spent years excavating what Iranian military officials have publicly called missile cities, networks of underground tunnels built into mountainous terrain, with multiple sealed chambers designed to survive conventional air attack. Connected to concealed launch positions, these facilities house ballistic missiles, including the Paveh cruise missile and the Ghadr 380, weapons with ranges capable of striking American bases across the region, threatening Israel and reaching Gulf state partners. They also store transporter erector launcher vehicles, the mobile platforms that allow Iran to move, position, and fire missiles with minimal warning time. The fundamental military problem Iran's tunnel network poses is this: you cannot target what you cannot find, and you cannot destroy what conventional bombs cannot reach. The GBU-57, massive ordnance penetrator, was built specifically to address that problem. A weapon the Center for Strategic and International Studies noted in a February 2026 assessment as capable of penetrating even Iran's most hardened underground architecture, though actual effectiveness depends on geology, tunnel depth, and chamber design. The timing connects to a period of sustained pressure. Iran's proxy network, the Houthi movement in Yemen, which has launched repeated drone and missile attacks on Red Sea shipping lanes, and Hezbollah in Lebanon, has remained active through a period of escalating Israeli-Iranian confrontation. Iran's uranium enrichment, according to IAEA monitoring, had reached 60%, below weapons grade, but representing a capability that, under the right technical steps, could advance toward a functional nuclear device on a compressed timeline. The combination of advancing nuclear capability and hardened mobile delivery systems created a threat calculus that U.S. and Israeli defense planners had been warning about for years. The question of the international response is where the picture becomes, in many ways, more revealing than the strikes themselves. No detailed international reaction from Russia, China, the European Union, or the United Nations Security Council has been formally documented in connection with these specific operations. That absence is itself significant. Russia and China, both of whom have cultivated strategic partnerships with Iran and have repeatedly shielded it from Western pressure at the UN Security Council, have not released public condemnations of the kind that would typically follow a confirmed American strike on a sovereign nation's territory. The UN Security Council, which has the authority to convene emergency sessions in response to military actions that threaten international peace and security, has not publicly escalated on this specific matter based on available reporting. Iran's official public response has been notably calibrated, Rather than declaring what was struck or what damage occurred, Iranian military officials released video footage showcasing the underground tunnel systems, Pave cruise missiles, and Ghadr 380 ballistic missiles displayed in operational tunnels, positioned to suggest the network remains intact and functional. It is a posture of deterrence rather than acknowledgement, a signal to domestic audiences and external adversaries that Iran retains its capabilities, without conceding any details of what was actually destroyed. That posture matters because it mirrors almost precisely what Iran did in the weeks following the January 2020 targeted killing of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps General Qasem Soleimani. At that time, Iran launched a ballistic missile retaliatory strike against American bases in Iraq, a strike that was telegraphed in advance, resulting in no American fatalities, though over 110 U.S. service members were subsequently diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries, many of whom were awarded Purple Hearts. Both sides ultimately used the exchange as a de-escalation mechanism rather than an escalation trigger. Iran absorbed a catastrophic loss, one of its most important military commanders, and chose a measured, face-saving response rather than full escalation. Whether that pattern holds this time depends on variables that are not fully visible from outside the decision-making chambers in Tehran. For the people inside the communities near these facilities, workers, families living in the surrounding areas of Tabriz in northwestern Iran, or the populations near Qom and Isfahan where nuclear-adjacent infrastructure sits, the ground reality depends heavily on what actually occurred. If the tunnel entrances at Tabriz North collapsed as reported, the immediate human impact involves the people who worked inside those facilities. Their fate has not been addressed in available reporting. Iranian authorities have not released casualty figures. What has been reported is what satellite imagery appears to show: collapsed access points, heat signatures consistent with secondary explosions, scorched roads leading into the mountain sites. What that means for anyone who was inside those tunnels at the time of the strikes remains unknown and, in the absence of Iranian official disclosure, may remain so for some time. The broader civilian populations in targeted regions face a secondary reality that does not require confirmed strike damage to be real. The fear, the uncertainty, the awareness that military infrastructure in their vicinity has become the target of an adversary capable of reaching them from 15,000 miles away. Communications patterns in areas adjacent to the strikes reportedly showed disruptions consistent with military lockdowns rather than infrastructure damage. But that distinction offers little comfort to people who cannot reach family members or confirm what is happening around them. Iran's population has lived through cycles of international isolation, sanction pressure, internal political instability, and regional war for decades. The psychological weight of knowing your country's military sites may be under active American attack, regardless of what any official says, is a kind of civilian consequence that rarely appears in military damage assessments, but defines the human reality of these operations. For the United States, specifically for Americans watching this from their living rooms, tracking their investment portfolios, watching gas prices, or with family members serving in the region, this story is not abstract foreign policy. Approximately 50,000 American citizens are estimated to be living or working in the broader Middle East region. The State Department maintains Level 4 Do Not Travel advisories, the highest possible warning, for Iran and several adjacent conflict zones. American military personnel are stationed at bases across the Gulf, including in Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates, all within range of Iranian ballistic missiles. If Iran chooses a retaliatory response that targets American military assets rather than symbolic strikes, those are the people in the line of fire. Oil markets have not, as of the most recent available data, reflected a major crisis spike. Brent crude was trading near $75 per barrel, and average American gasoline prices remained around $3.20 per gallon. That relative stability suggests that financial markets have either not fully priced in the confirmed operational scale of what occurred, or are waiting for clearer signals on whether Iranian retaliation and Strait of Hormuz disruption risk is real. Roughly 20% of the world's oil transits through the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that Iranian naval forces have previously threatened to close during periods of maximum tension. A decision in Tehran to mine or block that strait would send energy prices across the global economy in a direction that would be felt at every American gas station within days. The B-2s that flew this mission, aircraft that cost over $2 billion each to build and represent an irreplaceable portion of America's strategic strike capability, reportedly diverted to Dyess Air Force Base in Texas on their return due to weather conditions at their home base at Whiteman. That kind of operational detail, mundane in appearance, reflects the enormous logistical machinery behind a mission of this scale. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance drones providing real-time targeting confirmation. Electronic warfare platforms suppressing Iranian radar and air defense systems. The operation, if it occurred as described, was not an improvised act. It was a planned, resourced, and executed military campaign. Congress has been largely quiet in available reporting. No formal War Powers Act notification, the mechanism that requires the President to inform Congress within 48 hours of committing American forces to hostilities, has been publicly released in connection with these operations. That silence from Capitol Hill is itself a political signal worth watching in the days ahead. What comes next is the question that intelligence analysts, military planners, and diplomats are working through right now. And no one has a clean answer. The critical window is the next 48 to 72 hours. Iranian decision-makers are weighing their options. The historical pattern from 2020 suggests Iran will not absorb strikes of this magnitude silently. Some form of response is expected. The question is what form it takes. A proxy response through Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping or Hezbollah rocket fire into Israel offers Tehran plausible deniability while signaling resolve to its domestic audience. A direct Iranian ballistic missile strike against American military installations in the Gulf would represent an order of magnitude escalation, one that would trigger an American military response under any conceivable rules of engagement. There are reported indirect diplomatic channels, talks conducted through Oman as an intermediary between Washington and Tehran, that have historically served as a pressure valve in moments like this. Whether those channels are active and whether either side is currently using them to communicate limits and off-ramps is not publicly known. The IAEA's next quarterly report on Iran's nuclear program is expected in April 2026. That report will either confirm or contradict the claim that Iran's nuclear infrastructure has been meaningfully degraded. It is, in many ways, the most important document that will be published in this entire story, because it will tell the world whether the strikes achieved their stated strategic objective, or whether Iran's program survived and continues beneath the rubble. The Iranian missile forces that were not destroyed, whatever fraction of the missile cities network remains intact, are almost certainly being repositioned right now. Mobile launchers are the hardest military assets in the world to track and eliminate. They move, they hide in terrain. They can be fired with minimal preparation time, and Iran has spent years ensuring it has enough of them dispersed widely enough that no single strike package can reach them all. That is the reality that no military briefing resolves, and no satellite image confirms. Whatever was destroyed, some portion of Iran's capability remains. What Tehran chooses to do with it in the coming days will define whether this operation represents a contained, if historic, military action, or the opening strike in something far larger. Stay informed and do not look away.